Welcome everyone. I'm glad to be doing some new content again for the video channel. If you've seen some of my video series in the past, then you know that I do work with marriage and family. That's what I've been for the last 33 years as a marriage and family therapist, mostly focusing on couples and men's issues. If you've seen some of my videos on my channel, then you've seen videos for couples, for parents, and I want to do a video series on men's issues because I do work with men a good bit. And one of the things that I find that if the man in the relationship will assume some responsibilities and ownership over some of the things in his own personal life, then I've seen that goes much better for the family system for whatever reason. That's just been my experience working with couples for a long time. And so I want to do these video series specifically for issues that men I think struggle with on a regular basis, because I think men are they're lonely, they're tired, they're frustrated, and a lot of them tell me they're afraid. I do believe that men are afraid, and they're afraid to admit it. So I want to tackle some of these individual issues with you, and hopefully for some of the men in our lives we can maybe share this and provide some information, insights that will be very helpful to us all. The thing that I want to talk with you about today is I want to talk to you about the personality conflict that men have with themselves. When we hear the phrase personality conflict, we always assume that means a personality conflict with somebody else. And certainly that's true. Men have conflicts with their coworkers, their bosses, their neighbors, their friends, family members, spouses, girlfriends. Men struggle with conflicts, but I believe that the reason a lot of times these conflicts exist is because they're having one with themselves. And they're trying to find their individual voice or maybe their identity. And I work with men in 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, a really kind of a wide range of ages. And I find that to be a common denominator. As men get older, I think they become more afraid if they feel like they don't have, or they haven't found their voice, or if they've found their voice, they haven't been able to express it very well. So I want to talk about that with you for just a little while. I love the old Cherokee motif of the two wolves that reside in the heart of every man. The one wolf is evil. He's full of anger, bitterness, jealousy, rage, frustration. The other one's good. He's full of hope and joy and peace and patience and kindness. And the takeaway to this motif is the one that you feed the most is the one that wins. And so here's what I've discovered is if you feed a wolf long enough, if you believe that version of yourself long enough, then you begin to share that with others. You begin to speak that same version of yourself to other people. And then they reverberate that back to you, and it becomes this vicious cycle as you're trying to understand who you are. It's called, in scientific terms, it's called neuron mirroring. And it happens every time you have a conversation with somebody. If you're experiencing something on the inside, generally that is exemplified on the outside in your facial expressions. If it's something that makes you happy or sad, we tend to bounce off of one another in conversation. It's really a beautiful thing to study the neuron mirroring between a mother and a baby, a brand new baby. And I have 4 daughters and 5 grandchildren, and it's always fascinating to me when I see one of these newbies born into our lives, and to get to see the facial expressions that are mirrored from their mother's connections and interactions with them. It's just a fascinating thing. But we still do that to and for one another as adults. So what we tend to do is that we end up in this vicious cycle where the thing that we believe about ourselves, we're saying about ourselves, that other people are hearing it, and then they're reverberating it back to us. They're mirroring those same things. And then we wonder why we have a personality conflict, because the wolf inside of us that's being fed isn't the one that we want. It's not the one that we want to continue being a part of who we are. Now, I will issue a word of warning here. If you begin to sing a new song about who you are, if you're beginning to understand and maybe even restore your personal identity, then you have to outlast the last time you did the same thing. And this happens in my office all the time. Like a wife or a girlfriend would come in and say, well, I know I've seen this before. You're starting down this path, and it lasts about 3 months, or it lasts about 6 months, and I'm just kind of waiting for everything to kind of fall back to and they can't help it. They've seen the cycle enough, and you have to outlast the last time you decided to sing a new song. So I want to talk to you about some solutions here that may help you if you're trying to restore your identity, if you're trying to deal with this personality conflict that you're having with yourself, here's the first thing. Personality conflicts with self is often a math problem. Now, as I already said, if we're saying out loud the things that we believe about ourselves and then other people are kind of repeating it back to us, then we're already in this vicious cycle. Now, here's where the math problem comes in. Neuroscientists tell us that a negative thought is 4 to 7 times more powerful than a positive thought. That a spoken negative thought is 40 to 70 times more powerful than a spoken positive thought. Now, think about this. If you're feeding the wrong wolf, and if that vicious cycle is coming back to you on a regular basis and it's all negative, think about the math problem that you would have just after one day. So I encourage people to start using what I call chronological qualifiers. Now, before I get to that, 2 of the most powerful words in the English language is I am. I'm an addict. I'm just like my dad. I'm never going to get it right. I'm always screwing up. There I go again. I mean, we say these I am statements all the time, out loud, to ourselves, to other people. They reverberate them back to us. And then we end up with this serious math problem because spoken negative thoughts are 40 to 70 times more powerful than positive thoughts. So fix the math problem and start using chronological qualifiers like, I used to struggle with that, or that used to be the old me, or, there was a time in my life when that was true, but it's not true anymore, or I'm working on this now, or I've made some changes, or I'm making some progress, or I'm moving ahead, or don't use I am statements that define a time in your life that no longer exists, because if you're defining it right now, it doesn't exist right now. And so use I am statements with a chronological qualifier. Well, I used to struggle with that addiction, but now I'm making progress, or I'm getting help, or I'm gaining ground. Start using phrases that let yourself and the people around you hear that this is a different version of you now being fed. You're no longer going to play the math game here and lose at the end of every day and then wonder why. So I want you to address the math problem in your life and then watch, even just a short period of time, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, you'll begin to discover that personality conflict with yourself is not as strenuous as it used to be. Here's the second thing that I want to share with you as far as practical things you can do to deal with this identity issue, this personality conflict. Become obsessed with private progress, not public recognition. Become obsessed with private progress, not public recognition. It's what I call an intrinsic motivation model. It's not, I didn't call it that, it's what it is. You want a really good lesson or a study on intrinsic versus extrinsic reward, watch the Daniel Pink Struggle with Motivation YouTube TED Talk from, I think it's 2009. And you'll get a sense of the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, because our whole culture is built on extrinsic motivators: likes on Facebook, pay raises at work, kudos, encouragement, disapproval, approval. I mean, we tend to rely too much on what other people think. And I tell the guys in my office all the time, you have to learn to divorce yourself from the approval or the disapproval of others. And I'm not trying to create an army of narcissists here. I'm trying to create men with a mindset that's fair to the work that they're trying to do. Much of your partner's disapproval or approval with you really has nothing to do with you. It often has to do with their issues. It often has to do with the day that they've had, or the season of life that they're in, or in some cases, the fact that they're not dealing with their own personality conflict within themselves. So one of the tips that I give men here in terms of developing more of an intrinsic motivation, where I'm trying to make things better, a better version of myself. When someone struggles with, specifically in an intimate relationship, when someone struggles with something that you've said or done, or they're struggling, period, and they're having an emotional moment, assume first that you're not the problem. Now, because I've been doing marriage and family therapy for so long, I see this happen. Like a female will get emotional, or she'll express a frustration about something. It could be something that happened at work. It could be something that has to do with her mom. And his countenance falls, his eyes go down, his body language changes. And I'm like, wait, this isn't even about you. But he immediately internalizes it and thinks, well, what have I done? What have I said? How can I fix this? Assume you're not the problem first. It's a game changer. I'm here to tell you. You might be the problem because, one of the things that I also tell my guys is don't give your partner stupid ammunition. I mean, if you know something hurts them, wounds them, upsets them, if something that they made it abundantly clear that this is a bad idea for either themselves or the relationship, or maybe even it's bad for you, then don't give someone stupid ammunition. I mean, life's hard enough without having to provide ammunition that someone's going to use against you at a later time when you already knew that it was a bad idea. So you don't need to provide somebody with ammunition that they're going to use at a different time that you saw coming. But if you're becoming obsessed with private progress, and if you're trying to develop an intrinsic motivation model, well, you really should read Mel Robbins' book, the 5-second rule, where you're training parts of your brain to celebrate in the moment change, not rewards. Rewards is the piece of cheesecake at the end of the week because you did X, Y, and Z. I'm talking about an immediate reward, like I did something different, I did something good. I'm going to give myself a high five for that. I'm going to do the whole, like the Tom Brady fist pump thing, like, yes, that was good that I did that. And you give yourself those short, quick, immediate celebratory moments to recognize that what you did was a good thing for you and you are feeding the right version of yourself. You're becoming someone else, someone new. The more you adopt an intrinsic motivation model, the better you're going to be at recognizing how much you used to be dependent on extrinsic motivation. All right, let me give you one last little insight here. This could be game-changing too if you employ this. Do you know who usually leads every conversation? It's the person who asks the better questions, the harder questions. And so if you adopt a lifestyle where you're asking you better questions, harder questions about you, about change, about where you want to go, about the kind of person that you want to become, and you're saying those things out loud, I am becoming the kind of person who, if you're using that kind of language, and if you're asking yourself better questions and harder questions, then you're leading the conversation of your life. And you're not leaving that up to the people in your life to point out what you're not doing, what you're not saying, what you don't then rely upon an extrinsic motivation model. And I want that for the men in our lives. Sensitive to what other people think, sensitive to what other people care about. But your self-worth should never be attached and connected to someone else's approval or disapproval. Don't allow your self-worth to be poured through the filter of someone else's approval. And when you live your life in that way, you begin to recognize first, as the chief conversationalist of your life, what's a better question to ask me here? What's a harder question to ask me? And if you're the one doing that, well then you're leading the conversation. And you won't have people in your life that are constantly, at least as you feel, asking you the hard stuff. Beat them to the punch. Ask you first. Build a better version of yourself. Deal with your math problem. Create an intrinsic motivation model. And see what that does for your mindset and the way you view your life. Hey, if you think this was helpful, if you want to share this with somebody else, that would be great. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, that would be fantastic too. It allows other people to find the work that we're doing here. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave that below. I'll leave that open. And if you have any insights here, I'll also be interested in that. We're here to learn together. Let's help the men in our lives because we really can use all the help that we can get. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your attention.